Jennifer Lopez wants you to believe her new song, Wreckage of You, is about a broken heart, but the financial filings prove it's actually about a broken bank account. Most people think the Ben Affleck divorce was finalized back in January 2025, and that they've both just moved on. The narrative in the magazines is that Jen is healing through her art, and Ben is just being a grump in his new bachelor pad. But that is a carefully crafted lie designed to distract you from the superior reality. This isn't a love story gone wrong anymore. It is a real estate and asset nightmare that is costing them millions of dollars a month. While Jen was crying at her listening party back in July about how the last year almost took her out, I pulled the property listings, the LLC records, and the community property timelines that nobody else is looking at. And what I found changes everything. We've mapped out the crushing costs, the tricky legal exposure, and the strategic PR maneuvers for maximum clarity. In this video, I'm going to answer 3 questions that the tabloids are too scared to ask. First, why has their $60 million Beverly Hills mansion been pulled off the market after rotting there for months? Second, what does the lack of a prenuptial agreement actually mean for their massive shared wealth, including millions from movies, endorsements, and music royalties? And third, is the Wreckage of You album just a distraction from the financial hit or a highly calculated strategy to profit from the pain and claw back public sympathy? Buckle up. The receipts don't lie, and the timeline is messier than you think. Let's look at the house, because this is the smoking gun that reveals the true scale of the wreckage. You've probably seen the headlines that Ben bought a $20.5 million equestrian estate in Brentwood back in July 2024. He moved out, he moved on. This wasn't just any house. It was a high-end, discreet purchase made through a shell company to minimize media exposure, which is a key detail that speaks to Ben's approach to the split. But look at the listing history for the Wallingford estate, the massive house they bought together in May 2023 for a staggering $60.9 million cash. They originally listed it in July 2024 for $68 million, trying to quickly flip it for a profit after only a year of ownership. The price was soon slashed to just under $60 million. And then suddenly, it was pulled from the market entirely in July 2025. Why would two people desperate to separate their lives pull their biggest shared asset off the market almost 6 months after the divorce was finalized? The answer lies in the harsh financial reality. They bought at the absolute peak of the luxury market, and property values, especially for highly customized mega mansions, have softened since then. Furthermore, renovation permits from late 2023 show they dumped millions more into customized interiors, personalizing the space with a custom spa, gym, and screening room so much that it is now too unique for the average ultra-wealthy buyer. The listing photos, per an analysis by Architectural Digest back in August 2024, made the home look more like a museum dedicated to J.Lo's aesthetic than a family home, limiting its appeal. The most crucial factor, though, is the actual cost of holding the property. According to a Realtor.com estimate from September 2024, the conservative monthly cost of maintaining the Wallingford estate, including property taxes, high-level security, specialized insurance, utility bills for the multiple structures, and staff salaries for the massive property, was estimated at around $284,000. That is almost $3.5 million a year just to own it. This massive figure isn't just theory, it's cash that has to be paid every month. If the property was taken off the market in July 2025, that means for the last 5 months, Jen and Ben have been silently bleeding about $1.4 million just for a house nobody is fully using. A high-end real estate source suggests that the failure to sell is actually a passive-aggressive war tactic. Ben is reportedly willing to take a significant loss, perhaps as much as $10 million, just to close the chapter and get the monthly costs off his ledger. Jen, however, who is now reportedly living in the massive empty home as of September 2025, refuses to devalue what she sees as her crown jewel. Her insistence on sticking to a non-realistic price forces this financial bleeding to continue. This standstill is a perfect illustration of two global brands refusing to compromise their image, even as it costs them millions of dollars. The wreckage she's singing about, it's not emotional. It's the continuous monthly carrying cost of this $60 million mistake. This is a very clear example of emotional attachment interfering with sound business judgment, which is highly unusual at this level of wealth. This financial gridlock leads us straight to the most explosive part of the story, the asset division and the rumored no prenup situation. The common assumption, based on early reports, is that these two massive stars, J-Lo with the reported $400 million net worth and Ben with an estimated $200 million, must have had a rock-solid prenup. After all, they'd been down this road before, but multiple sources suggested they did not have a prenup in place before their July 2022 wedding, relying instead on verbal agreements and trusts. Since their divorce was finalized in California in January 2025, California's community property laws kick pin for the assets they acquired during their 2.5-year marriage. Let's look closely at the income stream timeline. During that marriage, J-Lo was a powerhouse. She released the This Is Me Now album, which fueled a documentary, launched her Di Lola alcohol brand that reportedly generated 9-figure revenue in its first year, and signed a massive production deal with Netflix. Ben was also highly active, directing and starring in major projects like the critically acclaimed Air and working on The Accountant 2. In a typical California divorce, those earnings would be split 50-50. This means millions of future residual and royalty payments from movies and music, a significant portion of her Di Lola brand, and even chunks of her lucrative endorsement deals for beauty products are now subject to division. This explains the legal anxiety. According to a Forbes analysis from October 2025, the community property portion of Jen's assets during the marriage could easily exceed $50 million. This is the staggering financial hit J-Lo was desperate to manage. The house is a symbol of their unity. The money is the foundation of their power. Losing half of 2 years of her peak earning capacity is an enormous blow, one that far outweighs the simple cost of the mansion. An entertainment law expert, speaking anonymously to The Hollywood Reporter in November 2025, suggested that J-Lo's team is likely arguing for a complex division known as separate property tracing, claiming a large portion of those earnings came from contracts signed before the marriage or from her pre-existing intellectual property. For example, arguing that the This Is Me Now album was a continuation of her 2002 album. But this is a grueling, expensive, and time-consuming legal battle. The simplest path is to control the narrative now. The more Jen is publicly positioned as the emotionally shattered victim, the less comfortable Ben's legal team is with pushing for the maximum financial payout. They know that aggressively pursuing half of her artistic earnings will turn the public, and therefore the lucrative branding world, against him. This complex asset war directly explains the suspiciously timed return to the spotlight, which brings us to the Wreckage of You PR pivot. Jen's initial cancellation of her summer tour back in July 2024 was framed as a personal decision to be with family. But hindsight shows it signaled the early professional distress of their separation. Fast forward to July 2025, just 6 months after the divorce was finalized, and she suddenly hosted an intimate listening party where she debuted a new ballad called Wreckage of You. An attendee, Edgardo Luis Rivera, told Us Weekly that Jen co-wrote and recorded the emotional track just 2 weeks ago. The speed of this creative output and public sharing is critical. A veteran PR strategist observing this timeline sees a deliberate Q4 emotional investment. The track was quickly rolled out alongside the news of her upcoming Las Vegas residency starting in December 2025, and a new international tour kicking off in Spain shortly after. She's not just selling music, she's selling the narrative of a woman who was almost taken out but emerged stronger, wiser, and better. This narrative is essential for her brand, which is built on aspirational romance and resilience. This narrative creates a crucial distraction from the financial realities. The Wreckage of You ballad makes her a sympathetic figure to her core audience. When the press eventually gets confirmation of the true cost and the messy asset fight, which inevitably leaks through new court filings, her team can simply dismiss it as Ben going after the broken woman who is just trying to heal through her art. It's a classic PR firewall. Use emotion to block financial scrutiny. Furthermore, the new music and tours are direct revenue streams that help her replenish the cash being drained by the unsold mansion. Meanwhile, Ben Affleck is playing the silent partner perfectly. While Jen is performing on the all-night tour in Spain, he's been photographed in Los Angeles looking stoic and focused. This isn't just quiet, it's weaponized silence. In high-profile splits, the person who speaks first loses the emotional ground, but the person who keeps speaking loses the war. Ben's strategy, according to sources close to his team, is simple. refused to comment, focused entirely on his kids and his highly anticipated work like The Accountant 2, and let Jen exhaust herself carrying the full weight of the public narrative. His silence validates the idea that he's indifferent, or perhaps the truly wrong party who is too dignified to air his grievances. His silence protects his brand's reputation for being serious and non-dramatic, which is key for his studio deals. This silent war means the mansion stays unsold, the monthly bills keep accruing, and the underlying asset division remains a painful, expensive legal battle. Every time Jen mentions Heartbreak, Ben's perceived dignity rises and her leverage in the settlement decreases.
So here is the final takeaway. The expectation was that J.Lo and Ben, being mature stars, would have a clean, mature split, valuing privacy over profit. The reality is that they are deeply entrenched in a Cold War fueled by a $60 million real estate blunder and the lack of a prenuptial agreement, which means her most valuable earning years are now being legally audited by her ex-husband's team. The stakes are far higher than just a breakup. Jen isn't just singing about heartbreak because she misses Ben. She's singing about it because monetizing the pain is the most effective PR strategy to offset the millions she's losing on that house and to protect the long-term value of her global brand assets in the divorce. The Wreckage of You isn't a person. It's the financial crater left behind by a merger that failed to include the necessary legal protections. The divorce was finalized, but the price tag is still rising. Next time you see a headline about Jen breaking her silence on tour or at a residency, check the property listings. If the house is still unsold, you know exactly why she's singing. The truth about Hollywood is that the biggest drama is always found on the balance sheet. And if you want to keep track of every calculated move and every spilled cup of fresh celebrity tea, make sure you hit that playlist link below.